Hey guys, welcome back to what I never thought I would get to say again, Premiere Prep. We are starting off Season 4, and to start it off with our first episode, I am building my video editing workstation. So the parts for this build are as follows. For the motherboard, I obviously have the ASUS X99E. This is a fantastic looking motherboard. It was actually about $50 cheaper than going for the one that was a step up, and I really didn't see any features that would be useful to me that I was willing to pay an extra $50, $60 for. It was really just like the lack of a couple of pretty items for somebody who's building like a gaming machine and wants it to look all, spick and span, nice and clean and all that kind of stuff. This one was a great bang for the buck at just over $200. For processing, I'm mostly keeping this build built around the CPU. And for the CPU, I went with the i7-6800K from Intel. This is a beast of a machine with 6 cores. I mean, this is going to be a very fast processor with, if I recall correctly, overclockable up to 3.4 gigahertz, which this motherboard, the reason why I went with this one is because my old motherboard was also an ASUS, and it had a single button overclock feature that was out of this world. So I cannot wait to pair this CPU up with this motherboard. For graphics, I decided to go a little bit on the milder end. Most people are building some very beastie computers built around GPU rendering, but I'm going to be keeping mine a little bit more around CPU. But I still wanted a very good graphics card as well, so I went for the NVIDIA GTX 1060, and this is still a great graphics card. But the reason why I went for the ASUS model is because not only do I like the ASUS products, but also a lot of the graphics cards had 3 display ports and 1 HDMI. This one has 2 HDMI and 2 display ports, and considering that both of the monitors I got are HDMI, this was a must for me. So this is a fantastic GPU, especially for the price. In the RAM department, I went with what I thought was the best RAM, but I didn't buy a very high quantity. I have here Corsair Vengeance LPX RAM with 3200 megahertz, and it is 16 gigabytes. Now, why did I go with just 16 gigabytes? If I'm doing video editing, don't I want at least 32 or so? Well, for initial building, I thought that 16 gigabytes was a good place to start, and within the next couple of weeks or so, I'll be buying more for sure. With the fact that this motherboard has 8 DIMM slots, I'll be able to upgrade with this RAM up to 64 gigabytes. That's if I buy the exact same size RAM cards. And that is going to be fantastic, so very soon I will in fact have 64 gigabytes of RAM. To cool the beast of a CPU, I got the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. This thing is a beast of an air cooler. I could have gone liquid cool, but this thing was only 25 bucks, whereas liquid cooling systems was going to be at least 110. And for price to performance ratio, this really had to beat it out for me. For storage, I went with, for my main storage device, the SanDisk SSD Plus, which is a 480 gig card right here, and it'll allow my computer to boot up really quick, my software to run quick, and just be a whole lot quicker of an experience. But this is not really good for long-term storage, considering that one of these costs around $124, and I can get an entire terabyte of my next storage device for only 55 bucks. This is the Western Digital 1 terabyte hard drive. I already have one of these, but I have a second one. I'm not setting them up in RAID right now. I will be doing that in the future, but for currently, I am just going to be using a single hard drive for main storage, and then of course my SSD is my main hard drive. Working with video and other media, I'm obviously going to be ingesting off of a lot of different cards, and so I went with the NZXT Aperture M card reader. This is a fantastic looking card reader. It has 2 USB 3.0 ports right on the front. It has the ability to read SD cards, MMC cards, SM cards, XD, CFast. I mean, it can read pretty much all of them. This is a fantastic looking card reader and definitely wasn't a bad deal at all either. And again, link in the description. One of the items that I've seen a lot of people skimp out on or kind of just glance over is the power supply. And it's really a shame because you wouldn't want to put bad cheap gas into your car, would you? No. and you won't want to put bad cheap power into your desktop, especially when you're demanding so much power. So I went with the Corsair CS650M. This is a fantastic semi-modular power supply, and it is 650 watts, and under my calculations I only needed about 450, but I went with a 650 just so I have more expansion in the future with future hard drives, upgraded graphics card, and things like that. So this is a fantastic power supply, and definitely not a bad choice. Now to house all this hardware, I took a bit of a risk. I went for the Corsair 100R Silent Edition. This is a fantastic looking case, great size, and it was really inexpensive. I think it was $65 or something like that. Really not a bad deal, but where is it a risk? Well, that cooler right there is like 2 millimeters longer than the recommended cooler length for this case. But doing some research, people say it does fit, it's just snug. So airflow and everything is not necessarily totally jeopardized, but it is maybe a little bit risky for this hardware. But for me, I needed a small compact case to be able to fit all this in, and I really don't think this will do too bad of a job. And to be able to see what all this hardware is putting out for me, I have got two VS228 21.5-inch 1080p LCD monitors from ASUS. These are some fantastic looking monitors at just under $100, and they're going to be phenomenal. I've got two of them. I cannot wait to hook them up. They're going to run through HDMI. I'm really looking forward to having two matching monitors, because in the past I've always had two monitors that were either different aspect ratios and different resolutions, or they'd be the same aspect ratio and totally different sizes. I cannot wait to have two matching monitors. I know that sounds really silly to be excited about that, but for me, it's a big deal. Alright, so that's what I have for monitors. Now all this hardware is absolutely useless if you do not have an operating system to stick on there. And I'm not going with Windows, I'm actually going for Fedora 25 KDE Spin. And if you follow Film World channel on Instagram, you would know this already. So that's all my hardware and my operating system. Now let's build this baby! Let's get into this. We have here our motherboard, and we have our I/O shield on the bottom. Oh, now I've seen these. This is new since I built my last computer. This pin actually is pretty awesome here. This pin is actually quite awesome. You can plug in all of your LEDs and your power cables and all that into here, which is all marked on here now. And it makes it a whole lot easier to just simply do all that, then plug it straight into the motherboard without having to sit there and look at all the directions constantly. You go, this goes here, this goes there, I think this goes here. It makes it a whole lot easier, so I'm excited to finally get to use one of these. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look here. We have, yes, two SATA cables, two more SATA cables. Looking forward to that. Looks like we have an NVIDIA SLI cross bridge, but we will not be needing that because I only have one card. We have, looks like a standoff screw and an extra screw there, just in case, I guess, your case doesn't come with enough. And then we have, of course, our instructions and the support disc. Alright, so we can set this aside for right now. And of course, we have our I/O shield. The thing that people often forget to put in their builds, let's not forget to put that in. Okay, so we have our motherboard here, looking very nice indeed, and it is within this anti-static bag. We're going to want to take it out of the bag, but keep the bag, place it on top of our box, put it on there, give us a little bit of a static break to ensure we don't have a whole lot of static electricity running through our motherboard, and that would be bad because it could short out the whole thing practically. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is open up this baby, and there, ladies and gentlemen, is our CPU. Absolutely beautiful. Now to put in the CPU, we have these two pins right here on each side. These are the lockdown pins for the plate that pushes the CPU down and holds it in place. We're going to want to push these in. I'll put this one in first. There we go. Loosen it up, and then push this one in. There we go. Alright, so now let's take this plate back. Go ahead and leave that plastic cap on there for right now. Now, if we take out the CPU, you will see there is a little golden triangle. Now, you want to place this triangle in the correct corner of the CPU socket. Okay, there it is. It's even marked on the back side of the plate. Excellent. Alright, so we want to set this CPU in nice and gently. You don't want to push anything. There we go. Oh, sets in nice and correctly. Alright, I like that. Alright, so just wiggle it a little bit, make sure it's definitely in. Very lightly. Pop the plastic thing out now. Push this down. And now we will take our first pin, push it in, and our second pin. Boom. First step done. CPU's in. All right, I'm liking this. The next part that I want to do is I want to go ahead and insert my RAM. All right, take out the RAM from the case or the box. And we got this nice little plastic container here. All right, there we go, there we go, there we go. This is some really great RAM. It's a DDR4 3200 megahertz. This is definitely going to be enough to have it fly. All right, now here's a trick when putting in RAM. So we have 8 DIMM slots here, but you will notice maybe that the DIMM slots have 2 different colors. There's black and then there's gray here. Of course, it will vary on your motherboard. You want to make sure that when you put in your RAM, you put it into the colored slots. In this case, it would be kind of that grayish color. All right, let's put it there until it snaps in. There we go, snapped in. All right, but the second stick also has to do the same thing. We want to stick it right there into the next colored DIMM slot. Very nice. So now our RAM is installed. And again, this is only 16 gigabytes. Pretty soon, it's going to have 64. But 16 will hold for now. And that's a great idea for you, is to buy the minimum amount of RAM that you can get away with for right now and continue to work your way up. It'll really help you out as far as the initial payment on the computer. It's time to install the cooler. Again, this is a little bit of a risk. So here's what I'm going to be doing. We have our box here with our cooler parts. We have our cooler itself. This thing is big. Very big. All right. I am actually going to dry fit this cooler because I want to ensure that before I put this all in, it's definitely going to fit in the case. And like I said, it was a little bit of a risk, but most people that I've heard talk about it say that it does in fact work. All right, let's go ahead and set it aside for a second. There we go. Now this case came in a little bit damaged. I am not happy about that, but luckily it's not bad. I'm able to pop it out and it's all right. So it's not going to cause any damage. But again, in a perfect world, that would not be like that. Now this case does come with a fan in the back. If I recall correctly, it has 2 up front. I think the back is 120 millimeters and the front is also 220 millimeters. But let's go ahead and take off that. Oh, the standoff screws are already installed. All right, let's check this out here. Just kind of set our motherboard in there. Carefully, of course. There we go. And now let's take the cooler. And just again, this is just a dry fit. And I will set it right on top here. That's where it's going to fit. All right. It's going to be facing this way though. Ooh, this is a very, very tight fit here. What I heard is that a lot of the people who are actually pairing up this 212 EVO with this case have to cut out a little bit of the insulation, so I might just have to do that. But I'm fine with that if it fits, because this is a great case. And it goes on right there. All right, so that was honestly probably the one thing that I was most concerned about. So that's very nice to see that this cooler definitely will fit within this case. That is great. And of course, the standoff screws are already in there, so it is actually pre-fit, and we know that for sure it will, in fact, work. That is very happy. All right, so let's put that cooler right there. Let's pull out our motherboard again. Now, this cooler is going to be a bit of a booger to install, so let's get to work on that. Okay, so we obviously have our cooler right here. Radiator and everything, very nice. And you will note that I'm being careful here because it has a plastic sticker on the bottom that we do not want to take off until we're ready to install it right there on the cooler, or on the CPU, sorry. All right, now over here we got our parts. Let's check this out. Yes, it does come with thermal compound. I had this like 4-year-old compound on standby and I really was not wanting to use it. So we got our installation parts here. Oh, now that's cool. That is cool. It looks like, if I got this correctly, these are mounting brackets for if I were to want to put a second fan on here in the future. So we have our power cord here, which is of course going to hook up to our motherboard. Okay, so these are all to size it up. Change positions. Okay, let's grab this cooler right here. All right, check the back plate out. Okay, so the back plate is not necessary on my motherboard, but on some of yours it may in fact be. Because the way that this plate is right here, I'm going to need to use what it looks like is these. Try these, but it also looks like I can use these as well, which are shorter, which I definitely want to do considering I've got that case. So I want to try to use these shorter ones if I can. So let's take this bigger one out. We have 4 of these. Let's go ahead and stick them on in place. They give this little socket tool that looks like you can use just a regular screwdriver, Phillips screwdriver. Got one right here, although it's not a regular Phillips screwdriver. And you stick it on top of your bolts that they supply and just torque it down. Of course, not too tight. Otherwise, you're going to run into some problems there with a cracked motherboard. Not fun. The cooler standoff screws are on, so all we have to do now is just screw this on, but we do want to take our fan off to ensure we can reach the screws. So there we go. Very nice. Wow, this fan is light. Very light. All right. Just right there. Now I know there's no thermal compound right now and we still have that sticker on. I'm just dry fitting right here. So this right here is actually not fitting on. That's why I did a dry fit. But it's because these little screws that secure onto here, it appears that I'm going to have to reposition them on the actual brace or bracket and get them into place to go on the motherboard. Alright, so with a minute of fidgeting and figure this out, you want to push up on the screw. Now if you see here, push up on the screw and it will go up into the second position. That's easy. Okay, had me concerned for a second. Well, you look at there. Fits right on. There we go. So now let's actually secure our radiator on top of our CPU here. We're going to take this thermal compound it has here. Alright, take the lid off. And we want to put on about the size of a pea right in the center. There we go, that should be sufficient. So now let's go ahead and take our clamp, feed it through, take off this protective piece of plastic here. And now we're going to place our cooler on the CPU. And I'm just simply securing the screws just enough to hold it in place. All right, let's go ahead and take this screwdriver here. So the CPU cooler is on correctly, and we know that we have enough thermal compound because I can just barely see it coming off the edge, so it's definitely spread to both sides correctly, but it is not oozing out or anything like that. I can just see that there's a little bit there. Very nice. All right, so now let's secure this nice and tight, going in a diagonal. That way we don't torque it one way, the wrong way, and all that kind of stuff. So just in a diagonal. All right, now back up here. All right, we're good. Cooler's on. Okay, so the fan, the direction is very, very important. So we have these arrows on top here, which are very important. They indicate the direction of it blowing. So here's the I/O right here. We want it to blow out the back. All right, so it's going to take in from the front and blow out the back in this setup. Some people I've seen do it reverse, but I want it to blow out the back on this one. So we're going to want to make the fan with the arrow pointing that way. All right, we're going to put it on here. And something I kind of lucked out on here is the RAM is on the opposite side of the fan. And actually, it doesn't look like I'd have a problem with that anyway. But in some cases, I've seen so many situations where they're having to change the position of the fan as far as height goes based on the position of the RAM. But luckily the RAM is on the opposite side and it all looks good. This is also good because it'll blow the air out the back and right over the RAM, keeping the RAM nice and cool as well. I'm gonna run it over here. All right, so I wanna put it into this port right here. This is the black one. This is for the main CPU fan. Our cooler is on, our heat sink is on, the fan is definitely good. And we checked our screws, those are good. We have our RAM. Let's go ahead and hold this up to ensure that, all right, wow, that's quite heavy, but it does look nice and secure here. All right, so now we're pretty much done with what we need on the motherboard right now. So let's go ahead and set this aside and we'll begin on prepping the case. Now there's a couple of things that we'll be needing in the case, all right? So obviously we need our NZXT Aperture M to be put in the front panel. Put the thumb screws to the side. Stick this to the side with the other panel. So now let's take out our card bay. Oh yeah, this looks great. Oh yes, baby. This looks really good right here. There we go. All right, let me see here. We've got USB 3.0 and the cables that go into the rest of the motherboard. We're gonna wanna pop out. There we go. Pops out nice and simply. Man, and this is what's so great about this case. This is the silent edition, and it even has the foam insulation padding stuff on the inside of these little doors that are removable. I like that. So I'm gonna feed through my cables here. Little pat on the sides, and we are in business. That doesn't look too bad either. All right, now we've got a couple other case accessories here in this cardboard box. So let's go ahead and take out this hard drive tray. I love these hard drive trays. These are so nice. I'll be able to easily remove trays, hard drives in and out. That's gonna be lifesaver in the future. All right, so let me see what we got here as far as hardware. Got some zip ties, not bad. And we got, of course, our securing screws for the motherboard. Nothing else in the box. And I mean, we're pretty much good to go. Whew. Yes, so my fan is on correctly on my cooler. That is good. It is gonna take air in from here, come through here. We've got the CPU cooler. It'll be going through the back and through the front and out the back. So I want to stick those to the side. I want to pull these cables out back. Pull these cables also to the side. So just move all the cables out to the sides here. Okay, so as you can see here, we already have our standoff screws installed. This is very nice. They're all in. And this one has like a little peg in it. This will be so that we can make sure that our motherboard is in fact centered on the screws. So that's very good right there. Now all I can think of to do now is set in our motherboard. Let's go ahead and do it. Oh, I almost did it. I cannot believe that. I almost forgot the I/O shield. Oh man, that would have sucked. Oh man, can you imagine if I put that in with the I/O shield out? Oh man. Wow. Wow, this just blows my mind. So the Silent Edition even has on the I/O plate insulation to ensure that it's even more quiet. It's just, it blows my mind how much they put the emphasis on silent in this case. This is phenomenal. It's phenomenal right here. And now let's install our I/O shield. Nothing fancy here. There we go. And make sure it's in the correct direction. So as you can see here, I have this keyboard and mouse combination outlet right here, which everybody uses this hookup. You know, everybody needs to have one. I don't even know why they include it in these motherboards at all anymore, but we have it right there. So that's the top, and that's the top. Make sure the orientation is correct, otherwise you're gonna have to take it out and do it all again. And so on this computer, I have officially not forgotten the I/O plate. So now let's install the motherboard. Cables all out of the way. Stick it in nice and carefully. Kind of dummy align it on the screws, being careful with that final peg one. And we also have a couple of ridges here to ensure that it's all correct. Our motherboard is in, and just moving it side to side, it already feels pretty secure. That's quite impressive there. But it's in. I can tell that that it is definitely on that center peg. Yep, I can actually see the center peg right here. Let's see if I can show that. So as you can see, the center peg, this is that peg spacer that we had, and it is definitely through, and so we are good there. That's excellent. Screw it in. All right, so we got our screwdriver here. Now, do note, you can actually use a magnetic tip screwdriver, but you do want to be careful because, you know, it's magnetic, obviously, but the magnetism in a magnetic screwdriver is not so powerful that it will cause any real damage. This one is not magnetized. It doesn't really matter. Just do whatever you want, really. So let's go ahead and get this screw in place. All right, so all the screws are in. I have not tightened them down all the way, but I have 2 left over, and I've checked it all over. I definitely don't have any more holes, so those are extra. That's very nice to have, just in case I lose some. And now in a diagonal, of course, I'm going to be tightening them down. All right, so all my screws are now tightened down on my motherboard. Let's go ahead and start arranging some of our basic plugs here using this super awesome, man, I would have loved to have had one of these back when I built my other computer. But this is our pin connector, so we can look for, let me see, like right here we have our reset switch. This entire I/O connection plate is set up and ready to go. So as you can see, the orientation right here is all correct. So making sure that it's good. Stick it on nice and smooth. That was easy. So on the back of the case here, I have all these cables, which is actually going to a fan speed control. But quite frankly, I don't need a speed control because the motherboard will control it itself. I just really see no use in having this. It's just 2 screws, so I'm gonna take it out. I really don't want this thing. So there we go, all out. It's a cool feature, and I could totally see somebody wanting this. I might even kind of want it at some point, but it's really kind of worthless to me. I'm gonna probably plug that hole up with some tape or something, but yeah, all these cables everywhere, that's just worthless. And look at the size of those cables. I mean, I could run it across 2 of these cases. There's no reason for them to be that long. Give me a break. All right, so that's out of the way. All right, let's go ahead and put in the power supply. There we go. It's a power cable. There's the modular power plugs. There's the power supply itself and zip ties. I like it. Now the reason why this is called a modular power supply is because unlike a non-modular power supply, obviously you are able to input all these. But it's a semi-modular because it does have these fully connected pieces and parts. But man, this thing is tiny compared to my old power supply. Wow. Okay, so we got the fan here, and we could, yeah, I think I will. See, I've got a dust plate on the back here, and it goes right where the power supply's fan would be facing out. And I'm thinking I'm going to want to do that, because I could face the fan upward, or I could have it facing down. And probably to keep better airflow, I would want it to face down. And also with that great dust filter, you can always clean it out in the future. Put that in here. Got the tabs, slide it in. Screw holes line up. Excellent, excellent. All right, so we got cables there. Where's the screws? There's the screws. All right, so we got 4 of these screws here. And I'm just gonna screw it into the back. We're gonna need to screw in right here, here, and 2 down here. So let's get that done. All right, now the power supply is officially installed, and we have our main power, which is going to go in right up here. Now that is the main power input right there for the whole motherboard. So we want to take this and just put it right in. Like a Hellcat. There we go. So our main power is in, and now we need to put in our CPU power, which is going to be up here to the back of the CPU. It's kind of hard for me to even see with my own eyes. So let me see here. Oh, turn that around. There we go. Nice click. All right, so I'm going to wait to run the rest of this power until I have in all my hard drives and, of course, my graphics card and everything like that, because I want to wait to see exactly what I need so I can keep it as little cramped as possible. All right, so let's go ahead and set this up here now. We've got almost everything in here, and we're going to have to do a lot of cable management, but all in all, it's looking pretty good. Now let's go ahead and input our hard drives, and first, it's time for the graphics card. I tell you, the presentation that they did on this thing is even really cool. I'm not one for all the, you know, ooh-ah elaborate unboxing, because once you get it out of the box, what good is the box? but this is actually really cool, I do have to admit. Alright, so let's pull it out here. There it is. Oh man, I've been wanting one of these for a long time. Set this right here and find what's underneath here. We got, alright, drivers and an instruction booklet. We're good on that for right now. And it's also in an anti-static bag, which is very nice. A lot of these modern GPUs really seem to be full computers that you stick into your computer. It's really interesting. Oh, wow. Yeah, so that radiator and those heat pipes, I mean, you can just see them. Oh, yeah, that's going to be really good. That's some good cooling and everything right there. This is really nice. I'm excited about this. All right, so let's go ahead and set that on our other anti-static bag from this motherboard while we take off this back plate. So the port that I'm going to want to put my graphics card onto is this top one right here. As you can see, it's actually kind of reinforced and everything. That's to deal with the weight of the graphics card. So we're going to want to put it in that top one, which means that our, let's see, these back plates that we're going to want to take off, it's probably going to be those first two. So let's go ahead and take those off. Go, set those aside. Let's put this baby in. Oh, nope. It's going to have to be the bottom two. That top one is not the one we need. So, set that aside again. Take off bottom one right here. This, well, third one down. Now let's put it in. Making sure the cables are out of the way. Don't want to snug any of them. Snag any of them. There we go. Line it up. Pulling back the lock-in-place mechanism. And push down. Here we go. And it just clicked, so we are good. And we're going to want to take these screws and put them in. Alright, so we're pretty much coming down to the end now. And all that's really left to do is mostly route power and get the hard drives in. Now I've already mounted my hard drives to the little bays, so I'll go ahead and put them in. Here's my primary hard drive, or SSD, going in right there. And here's my first one there. And I have a third one, but it's currently hooked up to my laptop. I'll put that in a little bit. So yeah, let's run some power here. We need to run 6-pin to the GPU. Let's see here, we got this. Got anything cleaner? Nope, well, this is pretty much what I'm gonna have to go with. So let's stick in this cable and run the 6-pin into the GPU. There we go. So there's our power to our graphics card. Let's go ahead and stand this up. All right, now here's what I need to do. I need to run my SATA data cables and my SATA power back to my hard drives. I got a SATA power cable right here. Hook this up. All right, and we'll stick it through the back. And coming around the back, I will stick my power right into that first one. All right, so there's my power straight to my hard drives. Now I'm going to take my SATA data cables. All right, so we got all of our SATA right here. Man, this thing can take a lot of power. This thing has a lot of SATA on it, so in theory, you could hook up a lot of hard drives. This might even be good for some kind of a server, really. And now let's hook up our last one, and there we go. So there's our SATA power and SATA data. Let's kind of go over a checklist again. We've got all of our power hooked up. I've got fans hooked up. I've got the CPU power hooked up, motherboard power, HD audio. Here's our graphics cards and power, and hard drives are good. All right, it looks like it's just about time to power it on. But before I do that, actually, I'm going to do cable management after I power it on because I want to make sure that it turns on the first time. Because otherwise I'm in deep trouble. So, I am going to set this up. I'm going to grab a monitor, and when I come back, we are going to try to turn this thing on. So before I turn it on, I go to take out my monitor, and ASUS decides it's a good idea to give you just a DVI cable and a VGA cable, but no HDMI. Nobody uses VGA, nobody's ever used DVI, so why the heck would they not include an HDMI? I don't know. Alright, so let's see if it powers on. Turn the power on back here. Fans are turning. Got lights on. Let's see, monitors off. No signal. Try turning it on with the monitor on in the first place. Alright, it's powered on. Nothing's coming. Power supply is not turning on. Graphics card. Okay, so apparently my graphics card is not powering on. I'm going to troubleshoot and I will be right back. Okay, so I just spent quite a lot of time Googling, trying to figure out what was wrong with my machine. I thought my graphics card was ruined. This is what we call a hashtag I feel like an idiot when moment. I forget to plug in, or I didn't plug in, a keyboard and mouse. That's what was wrong. I can't believe that. So I'm spending all that time thinking my computer's broken or something's not working right, and I didn't plug in a keyboard and mouse so the computer wouldn't initiate. Wow, I feel stupid right now. But learn from my mistake. Whenever you build a computer, make sure you plug in a keyboard and mouse before you turn it on. Wow. Okay, so let me see here. We need to go in and configure some stuff by pressing F1. Alright, let's run the setup. What do we got here? Ah, there's that beautiful ASUS UEFI BIOS. That's pretty much why I bought this motherboard. It's beautiful. Okay, now the RAM is only running at 2133 megahertz. Now, this is actually the way it's supposed to be. It's 3200 megahertz RAM, but it's running at 2133. That's because of the limitations of the CPU and everything. From what I gathered from research and all that, is that I am not going to be able to run that RAM at a full 3500 or 3200 megahertz. It's going to be limited to 2133 based on the Intel. I think this is Skylake. No, this is later than Skylake. This is I forget what it is, but anyway, with this Intel chipset, it can only go up to 2133, and I could overclock it and stuff like that, I think, but really stock safe is stuck at 2133. Alright, so let's check some more stuff up here. We got our boot priority is correct with the SanDisk 480 gig SSD, that's good. Alright, so I'm going to play with all this stuff once I get everything set up, but for now, it's time to install the operating system, which I have right here. And it should be either delete or F8. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and UEFI this sucker. Start Fedora Live. There we go, we got the ticking bar up at the top left corner. Should be loading up into the RAM and everything right now. All okay, all okay, all okay. Yes, 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 yes. Looking good. Oh, I'm kind of nervous right now just because of that one problem I was having. I hope nothing else is screwed. Right. Okay, we got a cursor, the KDE cursor right there. That's good, looking good. All right. Yeah, yeah. There's the KDE logo. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're about to load up into Fedora here. All right, this is looking good, guys, looking good. Let's have numlock on. Don't know why you wouldn't want numlock on. It's looking good. Oh. It's loading, it's loading, it's loading, it's loading. All right, so it's all here. We got Fedora up and running. It's looking great. Oh gosh, I love that KDE desktop. That Plasma 5 just looks so good. Oh yeah, this looks great. All right, so I know that the system is working. I'm gonna be doing some cable management, just off camera, because obviously just cable management, that's no fun to watch. And I'll get this baby all set up. But once I have this all set up, I'm going to click record again and it'll still be part of this video. I'm going to show you the setup after I have it completed. So I will get back to you guys in just a few seconds in editing time, but it might be a day or two in my time. Okay, so I've had my computer built for about 2 weeks now, and I've been doing some rigorous testing, setting it up, making sure everything is fully functional, and it is it's doing amazing. It really, really is. I've got CUDA set up. It's working great for rendering in Blender. I'm like, it blew my mind. I never was able to use CUDA before because I never had an NVIDIA GPU. I had a piece of junk old AMD thing. But now I've actually got a really good NVIDIA GPU that has CUDA, and I've finally got to try it. And it is out of this world amazing. I highly recommend, if you guys have not tried CUDA for your computer, definitely try it for when you're rendering in Blender especially. It is unreal how much better it is than just single core CPU performance. Now, that doesn't mean it's necessarily faster than CPU, although in many of my cases so far it has been. But especially when you're running like 2 in SLI, it can be very, very, very fast. And I'm just running one card right here. It's just blowing my mind. And you can get a great NVIDIA GPU for 190 bucks, whereas a CPU with about the same render time is about 400 now. So I'm starting to kind of rethink my processing unit mindset right now. So really, the NVIDIA GPU is just blowing my mind. That's basically what I gotta say there. But the computer's doing great. Fedora KE Spin is doing absolutely amazing. I'm loving it. A lot of editing is happening really, really well. I've also been playing with a little bit of Lightworks, and I also tried Davinci Resolve, the free version. Well, really quick, the Davinci Resolve free version on Linux does not support H.264 support codec. It just doesn't. And it's so frustrating because that basically makes Resolve worthless to me and almost everybody else out there, the free version at least, because for some reason the studio version comes with it and the free version on Mac and Windows comes with it. But the Linux free version does not. Does not make sense, and it's really disappointing because it looks absolutely amazing. And without H.264 support, I can't work with any of my GoPro footage, I can't work with any of my T3i footage, nothing. It's ridiculous. But anyway, Lightworks does great, and I'm loving it. The new UI in version 14 is really blowing my mind, and I'm thinking I might actually get the subscription to Lightworks. It is unreal. It looks really, really good. A couple of drawbacks on it for me. Mostly a bit of an issue with image sequences right now, trying to get those to work. But it really is doing a fantastic looking job so far. Although of course I'm not using it right now. I am still using Kdenlive, and it's doing pretty well. A little bit more buggy in the update version, version 16.04 I want to say. They tried to add a couple of features, and I think that's been making it a little bit more unstable. Definitely more unstable than 15.04. So I really would like to see some more stability come to Kdenlive, but it's still doing a pretty good job. But that's just a quick update as far as like what it is now 2 weeks into the process. The computer itself is blowing my mind. I'm really thinking about going for some Lightworks. CUDA's been doing amazing. Installing the graphics card drivers and everything was really not hard. I couldn't believe it. I mean, you would think that, you know, a Linux system and all that kind of stuff, especially from a company like NVIDIA, it'd be really hard to install the drivers, but they have done a phenomenal job. So if anybody from NVIDIA is watching, I would just like to say thank you. You have done a phenomenal job formatting these drivers to work on Linux systems. I mean, they are unreal. Installing it was easy, and it's working really effectively. It's just doing a great job. And CUDA, again, is out of this world. That does it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Next episode is going to be on Blu-ray versus DVD. That is going to be a great episode, and make sure that you definitely tune in for that. It's going to be really cool and definitely a fun battle between the two. Well, that pretty much does it. I'm your host, Micah Pendleton. Remember to live your life one frame at a time.